The words left her mouth like a slap sharp, careless, and echoing in the quiet living room, where sunlight still danced on the old wooden floor. My daughter, Maya, stood with her arms crossed, acting as if she had simply informed me about the weather, not torn apart the last piece of the life I had built with my own hands. She didn't know. She didn't know anything. She didn't know what that house meant. She didn't know what it held. She didn't know what I had hidden beneath those walls for more than 50 years. And she definitely didn't know what would happen the moment she walked through that door tomorrow. I looked at her, this woman I raised, this child who once held my fingers and took her first steps on the warm sand outside that very same house. Somewhere between then and now, she had changed. Or maybe I had changed. Or maybe life had pulled us in different directions and never bothered to bring us back. She cleared her throat. The money is already transferred, Mom. You'll thank me later. You can't live alone anymore. That old house is too big for you, too big. If only she knew how small that house really was compared to the secrets it carried. I didn't say a word. Silence was my safest shield. She took it as agreement. She always did. Good, she said, picking up her purse. Start packing. We're leaving early. She walked out, leaving the faint smell of her expensive perfume hanging in the air so different from the scent of sea salt and old books that lived in my beach house. As the door closed, the quiet returned, and with it, memories I had spent decades trying not to recall. Her father's laughter echoing from the balcony. The night the storm ripped the world apart. The basement door I kept locked for 52 years. The wooden chest I never opened again. The letter I wrote but never sent. And the truth I had buried deeper than the ocean floor. They were all waiting for me. I felt it. I didn't cry. Tears were useless now. Instead, I stood slowly, bones aching more from grief than age, and walked to my bedroom. Hidden inside the lining of an old coat was the key, small, rusted, and cold. I closed my hand around it. Tomorrow, she thought she was taking me away forever. But tomorrow she would finally learn what the beach house really was. What it had done. What it had witnessed. What it still protected. And what I never wanted her to know. But destiny doesn't listen to old women. It drags the truth out no matter who bleeds for it. I sat on the edge of my bed, clutching the key, my heart pounding with an old fear I thought I had buried. I wasn't afraid of the house. I was afraid of what waited inside it. And the moment I heard the front gate creak outside soft footsteps, hesitant, familiar, I knew someone else had come to remind me that time was running out. Mom! A different voice, dot softer, dot gentler. Regretful. My son, Daniel. He stood at the door, with eyes full of worry. He had always been the quiet one, the observer, the child who noticed things Maya never did. I heard, he whispered. She shouldn't have done that. I exhaled shakily. It's done now. No, he said, walking toward me. Mom, the house isn't just a house. Why didn't you stop her? Because I couldn't? Because the truth wasn't his burden either. Because I had promised someone long ago, someone now gone, that I would protect both of my children from the truth, no matter how much I had to sacrifice. "I'll go with you tomorrow," he said. "I'm not leaving you alone. That was the problem. No one should go back there with me." But he insisted. He always did. And I didn't have the strength to argue not tonight. He kissed my forehead, squeezed my hands, and left quietly, promising to arrive early morning. The moment he was gone, the silence felt heavier, almost alive. I walked to the old cupboard and pulled out a dusty photo album. The first picture was of me at 17, standing barefoot on the beach, wearing a white dress, smiling like the world held nothing but sunshine. And next to me, no, not yet. I closed the album before the memories could slice me open again. Instead, I opened the small wooden drawer beneath it. Inside lay a folded newspaper article, yellowed with age. Local fishermen still missing at sea, presumed dead. Everyone had believed it. Everyone except me. Because I knew the truth. And that truth was locked in the basement of the beach house, hidden in a place even Maya never discovered. I looked at the key in my hand again. It pulsed with old shadows. Tomorrow, everything would come undone. Tomorrow, my daughter would realize she hadn't just sold the house. She had sold the past that refused to stay buried. And the past always comes home. Morning arrived with an uneasy stillness, the type of silence that warned of storms long before clouds gathered. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the beach house not in the warm glow I remembered, but swallowed by shadows, its windows like watching eyes. I dressed slowly, folding the key into my palm, as if it were a living thing that could escape. When I stepped outside, the breeze carried a faint scent of the ocean, despite the beach being miles away. It felt like a warning, or a summons. Daniel's car pulled into the driveway. He stepped out with 2 cups of coffee, his face lined with concern. "You ready?" "No, I wasn't." But I nodded anyway. Inside the car, Maya was already seated in the back, scrolling through her phone, as if today was any ordinary day. She didn't look up, not even when I sat beside her. Daniel shot her an irritated glance. "Could you put that down?" he asked. She sighed dramatically. "I'm handling the buyer's messages. He wants confirmation on the keys." And since Mom didn't bother to pack, I packed everything that matters, I interrupted softly. She smirked. I doubt that. If only she knew how little she understood. The ride to the beach was long, stretching over roads that twisted like old memories, trying to claw their way back. I stared out the window, watching the scenery change, tall city buildings, replaced by open fields, then by winding coastal cliffs. As we approached the shoreline, the sound of waves grew louder, echoing through my chest. The moment the house came into view, my breath caught. There it stood, my beach house. But time had changed it. The white paint had faded. The windows were dustier. The garden I once cared for had grown wild. Yet it was still beautiful, still standing against the wind, as if waiting for me. I felt the air shift. Something inside those walls was awake now. Daniel parked the car and turned to me. "Mom, are you okay?" I swallowed hard. "I will be." Maya stepped out, stretching her arms lazily. "Well, here it is. One last visit before the new owner takes over." Try not to get too emotional, but the moment she stepped onto the front porch, the wooden boards creaked beneath her weight loud, hollow, almost warning her back. She paused, frowning. "It's quieter than I remember, because the house knew she wasn't supposed to be here." Daniel unlocked the door, but before he could push it open, I placed my hand on his. "Let me," I whispered. He nodded and stepped aside. I inserted the key, the ordinary one, not the rusted one hidden in my pocket hand. The lock clicked open with a sigh, as if the house itself exhaled. The smell of old wood, sea breeze, and memories flooded out. Maya scrunched her nose. "It smells ancient. It smells like home," Daniel murmured. "Home. Yes. But also a vault, a grave, a sanctuary, a secret." I stepped inside first. The living room was exactly as I'd left it. My late husband's favorite armchair still sat near the window. The old bookshelf leaned to one side. Sand had blown in through the gaps, forming tiny dunes along the walls. I touched the back of the chair gently. "Hello," I whispered without meaning to, as if the house or someone in it could hear me. Maya walked in, heels clicking sharply against the wooden floor. "Let's get this over with. I need to show the buyer a video walkthrough in an hour." Daniel sighed. "Maya, seriously, what?" "We're here for practicality." "Mom needs to move on." I turned to her slowly. "Why did you sell it without asking me?" Her jaw tightened. "Because you wouldn't have agreed. And you can't live alone here anymore." "I'm doing what's best for you." "Best for me?" "Selling the only place where my truth existed." "You don't understand," I whispered. "Then help me understand," she snapped. I looked at her, and for a moment I saw not the hardened woman she had become, but the little girl who used to run along the shoreline, chasing waves, laughing as the wind tangled her hair. I owed her the truth, but not yet. Not until we reached the basement. "Instead," I said, "let's take one last walk through the house." Daniel glanced at me, reading the worry in my eyes, and whispered, "You don't have to show her." "I do," I whispered back. We started the walk through. Maya inspected the kitchen first. "The cabinets have to go. The sink is rusting. The tiles are outdated." She walked as if she already owned the place. But as she crossed toward the hallway, she froze suddenly. A cold draft brushed past us. The curtains fluttered, though the windows were closed. "Did you feel that?" she asked. Daniel nodded slowly. "Yeah." "It's strangely cold." I knew why. The house recognized outsiders. We walked to the stairs. Every creak felt heavier than the last. Upstairs, my old bedroom was untouched, frozen in time. The bedspread I had quilted decades ago still lay neatly folded. Maya opened the closet. Mom, why do you still have Dad's clothes here? It's been years. I placed a hand on hers. Because he's still here in ways you don't understand. Her expression softened only for a second. Mom, you never talk about him, she whispered. Because some memories burn even when they're kept in the dark, she didn't ask more. Daniel walked to the window. The ocean looks beautiful today. I joined him. Waves crashed against the rocks below, white foam glistening under the noon sun. He proposed to me there, I murmured. Right where the water meets the sand, and where the storm took everything. We moved to the last place, my husband's old study. Maya stepped inside and glanced around. This room is creepy, she admitted. It was dim, despite the large windows. The air felt dense, as if holding its breath. The bookshelf in the corner tilted slightly, and the desk drawer was half open. I froze. I never left it open. Daniel, I whispered. Were you here recently? He shook his head. No. Last time I came here, you were with me. A chill ran down my spine. Something, or someone, had been in this room. Maya reached for the drawer. Probably just old wood shifting. Don't, I said sharply. She pulled her hand back, startled. Why? What's in it? Papers, lies, secrets. His journal. Just leave it, I said. She rolled her eyes, but stepped back. We returned to the hallway. The tour was almost over. Almost. I stopped outside the small door at the end, the basement entrance. To someone else, it looked like a forgotten utility room. To me, it was the heart of everything. Maya frowned. What's down there? Daniel looked at me, tension tightening his face. Mom, my fingers curled around the rusted key in my pocket. The metal felt warmer now, pulsing like a heartbeat. I need to show you both something, I said, voice trembling. Now, Maya asked impatiently. Mom, the buyer will be here soon. No one is buying this house until you know the truth. Something flickered across her eyes, annoyance, confusion, disbelief, but she didn't argue. I unlocked the small door with the rusted key. The moment the lock turned, a deep thud echoed from inside like something awakening after decades of sleep. Daniel shivered. What was that? I pushed the door open. A wave of cold air rushed out, brushing against our skin like icy fingers. The darkness inside the staircase felt alive, almost breathing. Maya turned pale. Mom, what is this place? I stepped forward, gripping the railing tightly. This, I whispered, is why you should never have sold my house. And I took the first step down. The basement stairs groaned under my weight, each step sinking into the silence like a secret reluctantly resurfacing. The air grew colder the deeper we went, thick with the smell of damp earth and old memories. Behind me, Daniel followed close. I could hear his steady but cautious breathing. Maya's footsteps were slower. Hesitant, she wasn't used to being afraid. Not of places, not of silence, not of anything she couldn't control. But she was afraid now. The light at the top of the staircase faded until only darkness surrounded us. I reached the bottom and fumbled along the wall until my fingers brushed the old metal switch. When I flicked it, a single dim bulb hanging from the ceiling blinked weakly to life, casting trembling shadows across the room. The basement hadn't changed. The concrete floor was still cracked in the same places. The shelves lined with dusty boxes leaned against the walls. Cobwebs framed the corners like old lace. But the room felt smaller now, more suffocating, as though it had been waiting, aging, watching, remembering. Maya stepped inside and wrapped her arms around herself. Why is it so cold? This is creepy. Daniel looked around quietly. Mom, why did you keep this place locked all these years? I swallowed hard. Because some truths don't fade with time. They only grow heavier. Maya scoffed softly, but it lacked her usual confidence. Okay, seriously, what is this about? What truth? I walked slowly toward the back of the room. My heart thudded painfully against my ribs. Even after all these years, the sight of that corner made my knees weak. Hidden behind a wooden cabinet was a small door barely noticeable, unless you knew it existed. Daniel's eyes widened. There's more. Help me, I whispered. Together, we pushed the cabinet aside. Dust swirled up in the air, sparkling faintly under the weak bulb. Maya coughed, waving her hand. Mom, what are you hiding? I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled out the second key from my pocket, the smallest one, the one I had sworn never to use again, unless absolutely necessary. My fingers shook as I inserted it into the lock. Click. The little door creaked open, revealing a narrow passage that sloped downward. The air that rushed out was colder than ice. Maya stepped back instinctively. What is down there? She whispered. I looked at her, really looked at her. Her face was pale, her confidence crumbling. For the first time, she seemed like the child she once was, fragile, confused, unsure. It's time you both knew, I murmured. Everything started here. Daniel placed a hand on my shoulder. Mom, wait! If this is too much, it's too late to go back, I said. This should have been told years ago. I took a shaky breath. It began on the night of the storm. Both of them grew still. I stepped into the narrow passage. The walls were so close, they brushed against my sleeves. The floor was made of old wood, soft from moisture and age. Daniel followed behind me, and Maya reluctantly trailed after, glancing over her shoulder, as if something might close the passage behind us. The tunnel led us into a small underground chamber. The moment we stepped inside, the temperature dropped again, and the dim light from a single lantern glowed faintly in the corner. Dust floated in the air, shimmering like old memories struggling to stay alive. The room was empty except for one thing. A wooden chest, small, worn, locked with a heavy metal clasp. Maya stared. That's it? You dragged us down here for an old box, but Daniel understood. His eyes widened with realization. This belonged to Dad, didn't it? I nodded slowly. Yes, he stepped forward, kneeling beside the chest. Mom, I remember this. I saw it when I was a kid. You yelled at me not to touch it, because it holds the truth, I whispered. The truth that took him away from us. Maya's brows furrowed in frustration. Can someone please explain? What truth? What storm? And why is there a secret chamber in your basement? I sank down slowly, my knees trembling under the weight of 52 years of silence. You were too young, Maya, I murmured. You don't remember that storm. You were barely 5. She folded her arms. So you didn't understand the danger, I whispered. And I didn't want you to. Daniel gently touched the lid of the chest. What happened that night, Mom? My breath shuddered. The memory was a wound that never healed. That night, I began. Your father came home late. The storm was the worst I'd ever seen. Wind howling, waves crashing, windows rattling. My voice trembled, and the basement air seemed to grow heavier, as if listening. He was carrying this chest, soaking wet. Terrified, both of them stared at me. He told me not to open it, not ever. He said it contained something dangerous, something that people would kill for. Maya let out a sharp, nervous laugh. Mom, seriously? This sounds like a movie. I looked at her, eyes burning. Your father died because of this chest. Her smile vanished instantly. Daniel froze. Mom, what do you mean? Tears blurred my vision. Your father didn't drown in that storm. That's what they told us. That's what the town believed. But the truth is, my hands shook as I touched the lid. He was taken. Both of them inhaled sharply. Taken by who? Daniel whispered. I don't know, I whispered. Men. Strangers. People he feared. People who came for what was inside this chest. The bulb above flickered. Shadows danced eerily on the walls. That night, he gave me the chest and told me to hide it in this chamber. He told me to keep it locked, sealed, untouched. And then, a sob rose in my throat. He made me promise to protect you both. To never let anyone near this place. To never sell the house. Maya stepped back, tears forming in her eyes. Mom, I didn't know. You never told me, because I wanted you safe, I whispered. If anyone knew this chest still existed, if anyone knew your father left something behind, they would come. Daniel swallowed. Is that why you kept the basement locked? Yes. Maya wiped her face. Why didn't you tell us earlier? Because knowing the truth makes you a target too. Silence filled the chamber. Heavy, thick. Then Daniel whispered, Mom, what's inside? I closed my eyes. I don't know. I never opened it. I promised him. Maya stared at the chest with trembling fingers. But now the house is sold. The buyer will tear everything apart. He'll find this. That's why we're here today, I said. My fingers hovered over the clasp. Once we open this, everything changes. Daniel knelt beside me. We're with you. Maya hesitated, then joined us. Whatever it is, we face it together. For a moment, despite the cold, warmth spread through my heart. The family I thought I'd lost was here, inches away, willing to face the darkness with me. I opened my eyes. "All right," I whispered. "Let's do this." My fingers curled around the metal clasp. But before I could unlock it, a loud thud echoed from upstairs. All three of us froze. Then came a second thud, dot louder, dot heavier. Maya whispered, trembling, "Mom, someone's upstairs." Daniel's face drained of color. But the doors were locked. My pulse quickened. Someone was in the house. Someone who shouldn't be. And suddenly, I knew the past had finally found us. The three of us stayed frozen, listening, barely breathing as another thud echoed above us. Then came the unmistakable drag of footsteps across the wooden floor, slow and heavy, like someone searching room by room. Maya covered her mouth with both hands, her eyes wide with terror. Daniel moved closer to me, instinctively shielding me behind him. The air in the chamber thickened with dread. "Mom," he whispered, "there's someone in the house." I nodded slowly. "I know. Who could it be?" Maya choked out. "No one knew we were coming. No one except the buyer," Daniel said quietly. A tremor shot through my body. "Or someone who's been waiting." The footsteps grew closer, making the ceiling dust tremble. A faint creak echoed from the direction of the main basement stairs the door we'd come through. "They found the basement," Daniel whispered. Maya panicked. "Oh my God. What do we do?" "We're trapped down here." I steadied my voice. "We stay quiet." The footsteps wanders above us, near the hallway. Whoever it was didn't know about the hidden chamber, not yet. We had a little time. Daniel clenched his jaw. "We need to leave." "They could be dangerous." "They are dangerous," I whispered. "Your father feared them. These people are not ordinary." The footsteps paused, right above our heads. Maya grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. Daniel pulled out his phone silently. "No signal," he mouthed. "Of course." The underground chamber was thick with stone. No calls. No messages. No escape. A sudden bang on the basement door made Maya jump. "They're trying to come down," Daniel whispered urgently. But the basement door was old, locked from the inside. It would take them time. And time was the only weapon we had. "We need to open the chest," I whispered urgently. Maya spun toward me. "Now! Are you insane? Whatever your father died protecting, it might be the only leverage we have." Daniel looked at the locked wooden chest, then at the tunnel behind us. "If we can't get out, then yes. We need to know what's inside." Maya hesitated, trembling violently. "What if it's something horrible? Then it's better in our hands than theirs," I whispered. Another bang shook the basement door, above harder this time. Dust fell from the ceiling. We didn't have much time. I slid closer to the chest, my hands shaking as I lifted the small metal clasp. The lock felt colder than the room, as if it held the chill of every secret trapped inside. Daniel grabbed my wrist gently. "Mom, are you sure?" I met his eyes. "Of After 52 years, I need to know. I inserted the small key. It clicked softly to softly. The chest creaked open. Maya leaned forward reluctantly, her breath shaking. Daniel held his phone light over it. Inside, there was no gold, no weapons, no strange artifacts, no evidence of crimes. Just paper. A stack of old letters tied with a faded ribbon. A leather-bound notebook. A rusted metal locket. And a small wooden carving masked, tribal, unfamiliar. Maya blinked. This is what Dad died for. A bunch of junk, but I knew my husband. Nothing he protected was meaningless. Daniel lifted the notebook gently. Mom, look. On the cover, written in my husband's handwriting, for my family, if I never return. The words pierced through me like a knife. Daniel carefully opened the first page, his hands trembling. But before we could read even a single line, the basement door above burst open with a violent crack. All three of us jerked. Footsteps thundered down the stairs fast, purposeful. They're coming. Maya whispered in terror. Daniel snapped the notebook shut. We need to hide. There's nowhere to hide, I whispered. Then we fight, he said, jaw tightening. The footsteps reached the bottom of the basements. Echoing louder in the passageway, shadows flickered on the tunnel wall. They were coming through. The passage. Maya backed away, pressing against the stone wall. We're going to die because of a stupid box. I grabbed her arms and shook her lightly. Listen to me. There's more to this chest than you think. Your father wasn't scared for nothing. Daniel moved toward the chest, pushing it into the corner, shielding it with his body. They're after this. We can't let them take it. The footsteps were almost at the chamber entrance now. I grabbed the rusted locket from inside the chest. Daniel. This your father never went anywhere without it. Keep it safe. He took it and slipped it into his pocket. Then, the footsteps stopped. Silence swallowed the chamber. Daniel held his breath, fists clenched. Maya pressed into my side, shaking. A voice spoke softly from the darkness of the tunnel. Mrs. Hail, my blood turned to ice. I hadn't heard that voice in 52 years. But I recognized it instantly. No, I whispered, stepping back. You can't be alive. Maya's confusion turned to fear. Mom, do you know him? I couldn't speak. The figure stepped into the dim light. Tall. Broad shoulders. Gray hair and kempt. Eyes that once held warmth, but now held shadows. My knees buckled, because the man standing before me was supposed to be dead. Daniel sucked in a sharp breath. Dad? Maya gasped so loudly her voice cracked. This is impossible. I couldn't breathe. My vision blurred. My hands shook uncontrollably. He stepped closer, his face older, scarred, haunted, illuminated by the lantern light. Hello, Ellen, he said, his voice breaking. My husband alive. After 52 years. The room spun. The ground trembled under me. Tears flooded my eyes. Why you died, I whispered. I buried you, he shook his head slowly. I had to disappear for you. For them. Daniel was frozen in shock. Dad? How is this? Maya backed away, shaking violently. No, this isn't real. Mom, what is happening? My husband's eyes moved to the wooden chest, the one he had begged me never to open. And a deep, sorrowful pain filled his face. You opened it, he whispered. You weren't supposed to. You left me no choice. I cried. They came for us. Someone broke into the house. He closed his eyes. They're not the real danger, he said quietly. Before any of us could react, footsteps echoed again from the passage. Not one set dot multiple dot heavy dot fast. My husband turned sharply toward the sound. His expression hardened. They found me, he whispered. And now they've found all of you. Maya's voice cracked in terror. Who? He looked back at us, raw fear in his eyes. The ones who want what's inside the chest. He reached for Daniel, pulling him close. We have to leave. Now, but it was too late. Because from the darkness behind him, a deep voice boomed. Step away from the family, Richard. And 5 armed men stepped into the chamber. The silence in the car grew heavy as we drove down the coastal highway. The sun was settling low on the horizon, painting the sky in orange and purple streaks. The road curved along the cliffs, offering glimpses of the vast ocean, waves crashing with a rhythm older than memory. I stared out the window, letting the breeze touch my face, pretending for a moment that nothing had changed, that my daughter was still my little girl holding my hand, not a woman trying to uproot my life. Claire kept her eyes fixed on the road, gripping the steering wheel as though afraid it might disappear. Every few minutes she would glance at me, then quickly look away, like she wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. Why are you so quiet? She finally asked, her voice tight. I smiled faintly. Sometimes quiet is safer than saying what you really feel, she huffed, annoyed. Mom, don't start with that cryptic emotional stuff again. I'm trying to help you. Help me, I repeated softly. By selling the place your father and I built with our bare hands? By promising strangers the last piece of home I have left, she pressed her lips together. It's not home anymore, Mom. It's old. It's falling apart. You don't have the strength to maintain it. I'm preventing a disaster before it happens. The wind rushed loudly past the car, but even it couldn't fill the space between us. I turned fully toward her. Do you truly believe that's why you sold it? She hesitated just a little too long. And in that hesitation, I found the truth. It's the money, isn't it? I said quietly. You're in trouble. Her jaw clenched. Her fingers tightened. She accelerated slightly, as if speed might help her outrun the question. What happened, Claire? I pressed gently. How deep are you in? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. I could read her silence like a book I'd memorized long ago. The car took a steep turn toward the cliffside, overlooked the path that led down to the beach house. When the roof of the house came into view, Claire inhaled sharply, almost shakily. Something in her expression shifted. Not guilt, not anger, fear. Real, trembling fear. That was when it hit me. She wasn't just hiding something. She was afraid of something or someone. "Claire," I said softly. "Look at me." She swallowed, eyes fixed ahead. "Sweetheart," my voice cracked with motherly instinct. "Are you in danger?" Her lower lip trembled just for a second, but she held it in, tightening her jaw as if locking the truth behind her teeth. "I made a mistake," she whispered. "What kind of mistake?" "A business deal. A loan. I trusted someone I shouldn't have." Her voice shook. "And now I owe money. A lot of it. Money I don't have." I placed a hand on her arm. "Honey, why didn't you come to me?" "I could have, because every time I fail," she interrupted, "you look at me with those eyes, those gentle, patient eyes. The ones that make me feel even worse. I didn't want you to see how badly I messed up. I didn't want to disappoint you again. Oh, sweetheart," tears burned at the corners of my eyes. "You don't disappoint me by falling. You disappoint me only when you hide your pain from me." She finally looked at me, and for the first time in months, I saw my daughter. Not the hardened, distant version she had become, but the frightened child who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. "I'm sorry, Mom," she whispered. "I thought selling the beach house would fix everything. I thought if I solved the debt, I could come clean. But now everything is tangled." I squeezed her arm gently. "You sold the wrong house, Claire," I said quietly. "And to the wrong people." Her eyes widened. "What do you mean?" I exhaled deeply as memories I had buried for decades stirred awake. "You think that house only belonged to me," I said. "But that beach house carries secrets you don't know. And if the people you sold it to try to take it," I turned my gaze toward the house, glowing warmly against the fading sunset. "They won't be the only ones coming." Claire stared at me, confused and frightened. "Mom, what exactly are you saying?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and I felt the weight of the truth pressing against my ribcage like a stone. "Sweetheart," I whispered, "you sold a house that doesn't just hold memories." The wind outside seemed to pause. "It holds history. Dangerous history." Claire shook her head slowly, unsure whether she misheard me. "Mom, what kind of history?" I leaned back, eyes fixed on the distant waves. "The kind your father spent his life protecting." Her breath caught. "You mean Dad?" "Yes," I said softly. "Your father wasn't who you thought he was. And that beach house wasn't just our family's getaway." I looked at her with a seriousness I hadn't shown in years. "It was his safe house." Claire's face drained of color. "Safe house? For what?" "For the things he kept hidden," I whispered. "Things people would kill to find." Her hands trembled on the steering wheel. "Mom, what exactly did Dad leave behind in that house?" I stared out the window at the waves crashing harder now, as if trying to warn us. "The truth," I whispered. "The one he died trying to protect." The car rolled to a slow stop at the base of the hill, dust swirling around us as the engine quieted. Claire's knuckles were pale, her chest rising and falling in uneven breaths. She stared straight ahead at the beach house, its whitewashed walls glowing in the amber sunset, the porch light flickering softly. It looked peaceful, innocent. But behind that calm exterior lay a storm she never knew existed. "Mom," she whispered, "you're scaring me." What was Dad hiding? What does any of this have to do with me selling the house? I took a long, steady breath. Everything, Claire. It has everything to do with it. She turned her face toward me slowly, desperation clinging to her features. "Please, just tell me." But the memories came in fragments, shadows of nights, when her father would return home late, smelling of sea salt and danger. Hushed phone calls on the porch when he thought I wasn't listening. The way he'd sometimes disappear without explanation. She grew up thinking her dad worked in marine logistics. A harmless, vague job title. Perfectly ordinary. But he was anything but ordinary. So I began gently, because the truth I had carried for decades wasn't something to drop all at once. It was a fragile, explosive thing. Your father, I said slowly, was involved with people who protected others, and people who haunted them. He lived between both worlds. And the beach house, I looked toward the windows, now glowing faintly in the dying light, was his sanctuary. And their meeting place. Claire's face twisted in confusion. Meeting place? For who? For the people whose names you'll never read in any newspaper, I replied, voice steady. People who didn't exist on paper, but who changed the fate of others from the shadows. She let out a shaky breath. "Mom, you're talking like Dad was some kind of secret agent." I gave her a soft, sad smile. "He wasn't an agent." I let the silence stretch. "He was a protector." The word meant nothing to her yet, but I saw the way it echoed inside her, landing somewhere deep and unsteady. Then she shook her head. "This doesn't make sense." Dad was quiet, calm, gentle. "Yes," I whispered, my heart tightening. "Because he wanted us safe. And because he wanted you to grow up normal." The ocean crashed louder, waves slamming against rocks, with a ferocity I hadn't heard in years. It was as if the sea itself remembered him. "Mom, why didn't you tell me?" "Because it wasn't my secret," I said. "And because once you know it, Claire, life stops being simple." She swallowed hard. "But what does this have to do with selling the house?" I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. "There are things in that house," I finally said, "that were never meant to be found by strangers. Things your father hid, protected. Things that if they fall into the wrong hands could destroy people." Her eyes widened. "Documents? Files, not just that," I whispered. "Evidence, names. Stories of people who trusted him. Proof of crimes that powerful men wanted erased from history." The fear returned to her face like a shadow. "Mom, oh my God, if I sold that house." "Yes," I said gently. "You sold more than a home. You sold a vault." She shook her head, panic rising. But I didn't know." "Of course you didn't," I soothed. "You were trying to save yourself. But now we must save something bigger." She stared at the house again, as if seeing it for the first time. Then, barely above a whisper, "Mom, who did I sell it to?" My stomach tightened, because this was the part that mattered most. I turned to her fully. Tell me everything. Their names. Their faces. How they approached you. Even the smallest details. Claire drew in a trembling breath. The buyer wasn't normal. Her voice faltered. He wasn't like anyone I've ever met. I nodded for her to continue. He came to my office, she said, dressed in all black. Polite but cold. Like he already knew everything about me. About us. He said someone recommended the property. He didn't negotiate. He offered cash. A lot of it. Cold dread slid through my chest. Cash. No negotiation. Someone who already knew everything. That was no ordinary buyer. Did he give you a name? I asked. She nodded weakly. He called himself Adrian. The name hit me like a blow. Adrian. A name I had prayed I would never hear again. Claire noticed my reaction immediately. Mom? Do you know him? I exhaled shakily, staring straight ahead at the house. Your father did, I whispered. Adrian was once his friend, then his enemy. And the reason your father died. Claire's face drained of color. No, she breathed. Mom, no. I nodded slowly. It wasn't an accident, Claire. Your father's death wasn't fate. My voice cracked under the weight of truths I had buried for far too long. It was a message. She covered her mouth, eyes filling with tears. And if Adrian bought that house, I continued quietly, then he's not done sending messages. The car fell silent. Heavy, breathless. Claire whispered, voice breaking. Mom, what do we do now? I looked at the beach house one more time, the wind howling as if warning us. We go inside, I said. And we face what your father left behind. As soon as Claire stepped out of the car, I saw her legs wobble slightly, like the ground beneath her had shifted. The salty wind rushed past us, carrying with it a faint memory her father's laughter echoing down the beach, the sound of childhood summers that once felt endless. But now, the same breeze felt colder, sharper, like it carried secrets instead of comfort. I placed a steadying hand on her back, and she leaned into it instinctively, like a child seeking warmth. The beach house stood quietly a few yards away, the porch light flickering, as though warning us not to come closer. I could feel my heartbeat quicken, not from fear for myself, but for what my daughter was about to learn. Each step toward that house felt like stepping deeper into a story she never knew she was part of. Her father had protected her from this world so carefully, and now she had walked right back into the center of it, without even knowing. I unlocked the door slowly, the familiar click echoing through the empty space. Inside, everything looked normal, almost too normal. The woven rugs, the sea blue curtains, the framed family pictures on the walls, all untouched, as if time itself had paused the last time we left. Claire walked in cautiously, her eyes scanning every corner like the house might suddenly reveal its hidden truth. She touched the edge of the old wooden table, her fingers trembling. It doesn't look dangerous, she whispered. I gave a sad smile. Danger rarely announces itself, sweetheart. We moved deeper into the house, where the air felt heavier, thicker with memories. Claire paused in front of her father's old study door. I saw the hesitation on her face, the fear, the yearning, the guilt swirling together. Without speaking, she opened the door. The room smelled faintly of cedar and ocean salt, just like it always had. His desk sat in the center, undisturbed, with his notebook still open to the last page he wrote. Claire stepped forward slowly, her breath catching. "I haven't been in here since her voice broke before she could finish. I walked to the bookshelf on the far wall, the one people assumed was just decorative. I ran my fingers along the wooden grain, applying pressure to a specific knot in the wood. Claire watched with widening eyes as a soft mechanical click echoed in the room. A small portion of the shelf shifted, revealing a hidden compartment behind it. Inside lay an old metal lockbox. The box was worn, scratched, and heavy with the burden of the past. Claire pressed a hand to her chest. "Mom, what is that?" I pulled the box out gently, placing it on the desk. "This," I said softly, "is what your father died protecting." Claire's breath trembled. Her hands hovered over the lid, but didn't touch it. "What's inside?" she whispered. I met her eyes. Names.files.evidence. People he saved. People who wanted him gone. Her face went pale as the truth settled on her shoulders. "So Adrian, he's after this." I nodded. "He always was. And now that you've sold the house, he thinks he finally has access." Claire shook her head slowly, her eyes filling with tears. "I didn't know." "Mom, I swear I didn't know." I wrapped my arms around her, pulling her close. "I know, sweetheart. But we're here now. And we're going to fix it together." She rested her forehead against my shoulder, whispering through her tears. "What if it's too late?" I gently cupped her face. "Your father didn't raise us to give up. Not when truth is on the line." At that moment, the floorboards near the entrance creaked softly. Claire's head snapped up, her eyes wide. I froze. That sound didn't come from the wind. That sound came from footsteps quiet, controlled, deliberate. Someone was already inside the house with us. Claire grabbed my hand tightly, the fear in her eyes unmistakable. I whispered, "Don't panic. Stay behind me." Her breath hitched as the shadow moved slowly across the hallway wall. And then we heard a voice low calm chilling. "I've been waiting for you." The porch creaked beneath our footsteps as we approached the beach house, the familiar smell of salt and sun-worn wood drifting around us. Claire walked slightly behind me, her fear wrapped around her like a second skin. I could feel her hesitation, the weight of knowing she had unknowingly sold something dangerous, something sacred. The key I pulled from my pocket was old, the metal dulled by time. But the moment it touched the lock, the house seemed to sigh, almost recognizing my presence after so long. The door swung open with a soft groan, revealing a space frozen in memory. Dust danced lazily in the golden light that spilled through the windows, and the familiar crackling of the old ceiling fan echoed faintly, though it hadn't been turned on in years. Claire looked around with wide eyes, taking in the old pictures on the wall, the furniture her father built, the worn rug, where she once played with seashells. She whispered, "It feels the same, like Dad is still here." I felt the same heaviness settle in my chest, but I pushed it aside. Sentimentality wasn't safe anymore, not here. "We don't have much time," I murmured. "If Adrian bought this place, he'll be coming soon." "And he won't come alone." Claire swallowed hard and followed me deeper into the house. I moved straight toward the old study room my husband's sanctuary, its door still painted the same shade of navy blue he loved. I pushed it open, and the familiar scent washed over me, salt, cedar, and something metallic beneath. The wooden desk still stood untouched, and the lamp beside it remained slightly crooked, just as he used to leave it after long nights of writing. But underneath the desk was what mattered. Claire watched as I knelt down and ran my fingers beneath the wooden panel, pressing gently along the grain until a tiny click echoed in the silent room. Claire gasped as a portion of the floor slid open, revealing a narrow metal compartment hidden beneath the house's foundation. "Mom, you knew about this," she whispered. I nodded. "Your father trusted me with this one thing. Everything else he kept from me but this hiding place. He wanted me to know." I lifted the small metal hatch, dust rising like ghosts, into the air. Inside lay a thick leather-bound folder, worn at the edges, stuffed with documents. There was also a small black drive, cold to the touch, and a faded photograph one that made my heart twist. It was of my husband and Adrian standing side by side, smiling, long before betrayal poisoned their bond. Claire knelt beside me, her fingers trembling as she picked up the photo. They looked like friends. I closed my eyes. They were. Before Adrian chose power over loyalty. Before he realized that secrets were worth more than people, her voice cracked. "Dad died because of these." I nodded slowly. "Your father had evidence of things Adrian wanted erased, things that could destroy his world, his empire, everything he built in the shadows. This house was the last place he trusted to hide the truth." Claire glanced at the documents, her voice barely a breath. "Then selling this place means I handed these secrets straight to him." I touched her cheek gently. "You didn't know? And we're not out of time yet. If we take these now, Adrian will get nothing." But just as I said it, a shadow passed over the window, followed by a crunch of tires on gravel outside. Claire's eyes widened in terror. The air tightened. The house seemed to hold its breath. I rose slowly, clutching the folder and the drive. "He's here," I whispered. Claire's voice trembled. "Mom, what do we do?" I met her eyes with a calmness I didn't feel. "We do what your father would have done. We protect the truth. And we survive." The moment we stepped into the hidden room, the air changed. It felt heavier, denser, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. The smell of old wood, salt, and time clung to everything. Claire walked slowly beside me, her eyes wide, absorbing every detail, as though each item might hold answers. The faint hum of the generator filled the silence, vibrating softly under our feet. Dust danced in the flashlight beam, drifting like tiny memories suspended in the air. The room looked untouched, as if my husband had only stepped out for a moment and was meant to return. Claire's gaze landed on the metal box in the center table. It was large, reinforced, and sealed with a special lock her father once designed himself. She reached toward it instinctively, but I gently caught her wrist before she could touch it. "Not yet," I whispered. "This box isn't simple." Opening it without caution could trigger something. She swallowed and pulled her hand back, fear flickering in her eyes. I could see the questions forming about her father, about Adrian, about the secrets tied to this place, but those answers required patience. And tonight, patience felt thin. I walked around the room, brushing my fingers lightly across the old files, photos, and half-burned documents. Each held a fragment of the life her father lived before he chose us. A life filled with danger, loyalty, betrayal, and choices that still echoed into our present. Claire stood silently behind me, watching with a growing realization. Her father was a stranger she never truly knew. I paused at a shelf containing 3 black binders and marked, plain, but pulsing with importance. "These," I said softly, "were the last cases he worked on." The ones he never finished. Claire stepped closer, her breath shaky. "Mom, were these cases the reason Adrian killed him?" I nodded slowly. "One of them, yes. Your father uncovered evidence, too much evidence. Proof of things Adrian wanted buried. And your father took it all, here." Her hand trembled as she touched the edge of a binder. "And I sold this house to him," she whispered in horror. I held her shoulders gently, forcing her to look at me. "You didn't know? And your father never intended for you to carry this burden. But now that we're here, we have to protect what he died for." She closed her eyes as tears slid down her cheeks, guilt and fear blending into a single painful expression. Suddenly, a faint sound echoed above us, a soft, deliberate thud. Claire's eyes flew open. We both froze. Another thud followed, then the unmistakable creak of floorboards. Someone was upstairs. Someone moving carefully. Someone who didn't want to be heard. Claire grabbed my arm, panic surging through her. But I signaled her to stay silent. Whoever it was had entered without lights, without voices, without hesitation. That meant only one thing: they knew exactly where to go. They were looking for this room. The lights flickered as the generator strained. Claire's breath hitched. "Mom," she whispered, barely audible. "Is it him?" I didn't answer. But deep inside, my heart already knew the truth. Adrian had arrived. And he wasn't alone. The creaking above grew louder, footsteps spreading through the house with terrifying precision. Claire covered her mouth with both hands, trying to control her trembling. I guided her back, positioning us behind the old filing cabinet. The shadows wrapped around us as the generator hummed an unsteady warning. Then came the sound we feared most: slow footsteps descending the hidden stairway. They had found the door. I held Claire's hand tightly. "It's time," I whispered, my voice calm despite the storm rising around us. We face what your father couldn't finish. The moment we stepped out of the car, a strange stillness settled over the beach. The waves crashed loudly, but the wind seemed to hold its breath as if the coastline itself was waiting for something inevitable to unfold. Claire walked beside me, her steps slow and uncertain, her eyes fixed on the house she thought she'd simply sold, never knowing it was about to change the course of her life forever. I could feel her fear radiating through every movement, yet beneath it, there was something else to remorse. The kind that grows quietly, painfully, when a person realizes their mistake wasn't small, but massive enough to shake everything they've ever known. When we reached the porch, I paused. My hand hovered just above the doorknob, memories flooding back all at once. The laughter, the late-night talks, the smell of her father's old cedar jacket hanging near the stairs. But also the secrets, the coded messages, the strange visitors who only came at night. Claire didn't know any of it. She was a child then protected, sheltered, innocent. But innocence doesn't last forever. And tonight, reality was waiting behind that door. "Mom, are you sure?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "No," I said honestly, "but we have no choice." I pushed the door open. The hinges groaned softly, as if waking from years of sleep. Inside, everything looked exactly the same as it had the day her father left for the last time. His old coffee mug was still on the kitchen counter. The framed photograph of the three of us still hung crooked above the fireplace. Dust floated in the slanted evening light, like tiny ghosts drifting across the room. Claire stepped in beside me, her breath shaky. "It looks untouched. That's how he wanted it," I murmured. I walked deeper into the house, toward the hallway, where her father once kept his study. Claire followed close behind, her eyes scanning everything, every picture, every piece of furniture, every shadow as if trying to understand what pieces of her childhood had been real and what had been hidden. When we reached the study door, she stopped Mom. "Why does this feel like we're about to open something dangerous?" "Because we are," I whispered. But danger is not always a monster. Sometimes it's just the truth. I turned the doorknob slowly. The room was dark, cold, and untouched just as he'd left it. His desk stood in the center, papers stacked neatly, pens aligned with his old habit of precision. But under that desk, hidden behind a false wooden panel, was the real secret. Claire watched as I knelt down and pressed my hand flat against the floorboard, feeling for the slight shift in texture her father had taught me years ago. When my palm reached the right spot, the wood clicked softly. Claire gasped as the hidden compartment rose a few inches. Inside it was a steel LOCKBOX dot, heavy dot unmarked. And dangerous. "Mom, what's inside?" I looked at her gently, sadly. "Your father's final truth." She knelt beside me, her eyes wide. "Do you have the key?" "I don't need one." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the pendant I had worn for 20 years, her father's last gift to me. Claire frowned in confusion until she saw the tiny hidden ridge along its edge. "Mom, that's the real key," I said quietly. I inserted it into the unseen slot on the box. A metallic click echoed through the room. Claire held her breath. The lid opened slowly, and inside were 3 things. A sealed envelope with her name. A small black notebook with encrypted markings. And a USB drive wrapped in fabric. Claire whispered, "Why? Why is my name on it?" I handed her the envelope. "Because this was always meant for you." Her hands trembled as she took it. But before she could open it, a sudden floorboard creaked behind us. Claire spun around. My heartbeat stopped. Someone was in the house. Not the wind. Not our memories. Not a ghost. A real person. A shadow stood at the entrance of the study, tall, still, watching us with the calm of someone who had been waiting. Claire's breath hitched. "Mom, is that?" I stepped in front of her instinctively. "Yes," I whispered. The figure stepped forward, the dim light touching his face at last. It was Adrian. And he was smiling. The moment we stepped inside the dimly lit hallway of the beach house, a strange stillness wrapped itself around us like the walls were holding their breath. Claire walked beside me, her steps hesitant, her eyes scanning every corner, as if expecting danger to jump out at her. I could feel her fear pulsing off her, but I also sensed something else rising beneath it. Guilt. Every picture on the wall seemed to whisper a memory of her childhood, her first seashell collection, her birthday spent building sandcastles with her father. The nights he would carry her on his shoulders as fireworks exploded above the waves. She paused in front of a photo of herself, sitting on her father's lap, the 2 of them laughing at something outside the frame. Claire's hand lifted shakily, her fingertips brushing the glass. "I didn't know I was selling this," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Mom, I didn't know I was giving away our whole life." I placed a soft hand on her back. "You were scared," I said gently. "And scared people make desperate decisions. Your father would never blame you." "And neither do I," she swallowed hard, wiping a stray tear from her cheek. But before she could speak, a soft thud echoed from deeper inside the house. Claire froze. I turned slowly toward the sound. It was faint like a drawer sliding shut, or a footstep on old wood. My breath tightened. "Mom, is someone else here?" she whispered. "Maybe," I replied quietly. "Or maybe the house is waking up." We moved toward the narrow hallway that led to your father's old study. The boards creaked under our weight, their worn surfaces covered in dust except for a strange, fresh trail footprints. Large ones. Claire gripped my arm. "Mom, stay behind me." I pushed the study door open, and a rush of cold air spilled out. The curtains were swaying, the window slightly open, though I hadn't touched it in years. Papers were scattered across the desk papers that were once hidden in locked drawers. Someone had been here. Someone had searched, and someone had left in a hurry.